a shoe review. So I would love to show you, kind of walk you guys through the process of how I chose my brand new running shoes and how I choose running shoes for myself in different seasons and for my clients as they're trying to get back to running or they're back to running and just want to freaking rock it. So, for starters, I will say these are Brooks and all of my shoes are Brooks. I'm not a sponsored girly, but I just am a really simplistic person. If something has worked for me, I just like to stay on that path and kind of stay within the same family. Choosing all of these different brands just gets really confusing for me. Also like as easy as like sizing. Like sizing is different in so many different brands, and I just like don't have the mental space to figure out what my size is and do all these different things. So I really have been running in Brooks since probably like 2010, I would say. I started in Sauconys, which were amazing, and then I just had a friend that worked at a run store, and it was like, "Hey, you should try Brooks because, of these color preferences and these different things," and that's just what I've been doing. So, these are the Hyperion. They're not the Hyperion Max, they're just like the Hyperion regulars, we'll say. And I will say, like, I was sad about getting these because of where I was previous to this. So let me kind of take you back to the genesis of where I started. And I have like three generations of shoes that I'll kind of walk you guys through. So when I started in my journey with Brooks running, I believe that I started with the Brooks Glycerin. So the Glycerin is still a running shoe. It is like way more cushion and support than the Hyperions. And this was like a really great place for me to start. I have like a pretty neutral foot. I would say a little bit more of a flat arch, maybe compared to someone else, but I have like generally like just pretty like neutral feet. Maybe I fall into pronation a little bit more on my right compared to my left. And I felt like when I got assessed and was, assessed by the person that was working there, they were like, okay, you fall into a little bit more pronation. So we're going to put you in this more stability shoe. So this was like really, really early in my running career. I was probably still like high school, college at this point. Um, and then once I got out of college and was into grad school and got way more into weightlifting and stability and control and all of this stuff, I started to realize that using something like the glycerin or even the ghost was actually like really, really supportive for me. And it was like almost like too much support. Like I felt like I was just getting, there was just too much support in my foot. It was like kind of forcing my foot to go all these different ways. In something like the glycerin or the ghost, they have like more support on like the inner and then like the outer portions that are, I believe Brooks you calls them like rails, and they have this really awesome technology that is in there that is just going to help you not fall into as much pronation and then also just give you more cushion, which is amazing. But as I was getting into more lifting and I just felt like my feet were getting stronger, my hips were getting stronger, everything was getting stronger, I just didn't want as much support and cushion. And I actually started running in the Levitate. So let me show you. This is my first. These were my first Levitates. These are absolutely freaking disgusting. I actually got these in 2020 from they did like a medical professional thing in Seattle, and I got to go in and get like fitted and tested by a Fleet Feet store, which was super awesome. And then they did a partnership with Brooks. So they like Brooks came in and taught us, and then we got to be like fitted and tested. And they were like, "Oh, you'd actually do better with more of a Levitate," which this is like it's a more neutral shoe. So there's less cushion. And I would also say like it's a pretty the Brooks would label it more as like a speed shoe. So it's something that's like way lighter. I really enjoy that there's less like support and cushion. So there's less of those like rails that are on the side. There's definitely still support in there, but I don't feel like I'm wearing like a cushion high heel. And it's a little bit more like responsive to the ground. I also just love like this is kind of like more of a sock material as opposed to like the glycerin or the ghost, or even I think I used to run in something called, I think it was called the Ravenna, is like way thicker. And I just felt like I was like really encapsulated into the shoe. And there was just like so much shoe that I felt like I was like being suffocated. Okay, but this is something that is less supportive than the like glycerin or the Ghost, but more supportive than I think what I'll show you next. So from here, I was like, well, I loved this Levitate. And then I go to the store and they're like, well, we have an upgraded version of the Levitate. And then thus I went to these ones. Now, guys, I'm not really good with getting new shoes. Like, it's just not my thing. So I probably got these in like 2022, 2023, after getting my past shoes in 2020. So like I'm terrible at replacing my shoes, but these are also the Levitate. These are my favorite pair of shoes I have literally ever had, which is also why I have like worn them down to a freaking thread. I mean, I've needed new shoes. I trained for my 50K in these when I was doing road running for, training and whatnot. And like, they're just absolutely disgusting. You could just tell that like I've worn them down so much. And like, yeah, they're not good. But so this is Levitate. They don't make these anymore, which is really sad because I loved it. And I won't go too far because they don't make them anymore, but I loved like the really soft, like cushion fit here. I felt like that was just like perfectly amazing for me. And again, these are like right in that neutral range. They're like more of a speed shoe, so there's less support and they're a little bit more responsive. So I went into Brooks this past week and was like, hey, I really want these. And they're like, we don't make those anymore. So that's where I came up with the Hyperions. Or sorry, the Hyperions, not the Hyperions. So that's what these are. There's 3 grades of the Hyperions. So they have Hyperion, I'm just gonna call these regular, and then they have like the Max, and then they have like the racing shoe. So these I put on, and I'm honestly gonna say they're so light. Like as soon as I put it on, I was like, they're very responsive. I can like really feel the ground. Like I swear if there was a rock underneath here, I could definitely feel it. But I just liked that it still had that like nice neutral stability. Like I didn't feel like it was like canting me so far one way or twisting me so far the other way because there was all of that different support. And I just feel like that is where I'm accustomed to now that I've really been training my feet and training bare feet with my stability and strength training work. I just feel like this is what like helps and supports me the most with like not wanting my feet to just be overwhelmed with cushion. And then I also tried on, so this is the like regular, we'll say the Hyperion Max, is the like the shoe grade up from here. And that one felt crazy to me. So Hyperion Max actually has like a little, I'm just gonna exaggerate this, but they have a little bit of a lift that kind of like um sorry, it's not a lift. It's more of like a rocker that like kind of pushes you forward. So if you're imagining, um, when you're like running and you're like going on to that next step and you're like kind of pushing off your foot, it accentuates and exaggerates that motion. So I was talking to the sales rep and he was like, yeah, this isn't necessarily like a good shoe for you to go walking in because when you're running, you're not like hitting your heel and then going all the way forward as much as you are when you're walking. When you're walking, you really have heel strike and you're coming forward. People have different spots that they hit when they're running. But it like really does kind of tip you forward. And it felt really aggressive. And I was like, you know what? I just know that I'm more of an injury prone person when I'm making these changes. I don't want a shoe that's just going to keep rocking me forward. So I decided to go with like the regular instead of the Max. If you're someone that's going to go to the Hyperion Max, what I would say is ease into it. So like if I bought the Max, the one that pushes me forward, I would probably do like a day a week in that and then slowly progress and just make sure that that excess force forward is going to be okay for my body. And then there's one more phase up, and that's the one with the carbon plate. And that one for sure, I would really only be doing like for sure once a week with the carbon plate, really easing into that, maybe focusing on some like or not faster, some faster pace runs with that one, just maybe doing speed work with that one, and then getting accustomed to it as I'm like thinking about incorporating it into like a longer race distance and just seeing how my body goes with that. So I have tried this shoe. I'm still heartbroken that the Levitate is not made anymore, but I will say this is my shoe that I'm going with when I'm doing road running. And then I also run in my trail shoes, which are Brooks Cascadias. I think they only have 2 trail running shoes that are Brooks anyway, so that makes it pretty easy. But again, like they're pretty neutral. Like I would say they're probably the most similar to they're a little bit more cushiony than the Levitate, but they don't have as much as like the Adrenaline or the Glycerin or the Ghost. Actually, I don't know if the Adrenaline is still around, but the Ghost and the Glycerin for sure still are. So what I would say is I just absolutely have been loving my Brooks. If you're a person who isn't really training a lot of your foot and you like feel like you're kind of really relying on a ton of cushion and a ton of support, like that is something that you can work on as you're doing like different strength and stability work. If you're interested in like a follow along program and guide that has good cueing for the foot, for the hip, for the knee, for the back, the Empowered Runners Club, I'll link it in the show notes, has a full hip stability series, and then that follows into a hip strength series. And you could really focus on doing that completely barefoot and working on building up good control through your feet, knee, hip, back. That's really going to support and bolster you as you're going into, maybe a training cycle or just increasing your running volume, or decreasing the amount of support that you need from your shoes, as you're, in your running career. So that is personally what I did. I started with a heavier support and then was able to wean off of it. And I feel like it just gives me a lot of confidence knowing that like I don't need a certain pair of shoes to make sure that I'm going to be, okay. And I think there's just a lot of power in that. So if you're interested in figuring out like what shoes would work best for you, I would love to help you in any way that I can. I do see patients in the Seattle, Washington area where I do full running assessments, look at your form, strength, range of motion, look at your shoe wear. And then also with my performance coaching online, that's a really easy place to talk about shoe wear as well and make sure that you're getting what you need. So if you guys need anything, feel free to reach out in the comments and I would love to help.